David Kaye, true or false, doing kid shows made you not want to have children of your own?
True.
John Abrams, have you ever accidentally cursed in front of a group of kids? And if so, what was the word?
No, I haven't. Thank goodness.
You're a liar. Joe Holiday, after a show, have you ever been flirted with by a horny parent or teacher?
Oh, absolutely.
These questions and many more will be forced upon my guest panelists when they receive my late night magic touch. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again this Friday night. I am Michael Paul. Tonight's Late Night Magic Touch is titled Kids Performers, because that was a lot safer than the working title, Doing Tricks with Kids. Now, I knew that kids performers were more than just red noses and birthday parties and birthday cakes, but when I was told that this very specific niche had big money and superstar icons in their field, I thought, why? I am not a magician. I am barely a fan. Why am I here? Only to roofie and intro this illustrious world-class panel. Literally performing around the world for mega companies like Google and Honda, he guest starred in the Asia Touring Spectacular Mega Magic Illusion Show and voted Atlantic City's favorite magician. Now he tours his own educational school show called Reading Rocks. He is Joe Holiday. Christmas shows, birthday shows, library shows, and elementary schools. This guy has a show for every occasion. I want to book you for my bris. Combining two elements that can go horribly wrong, magic and animals. He also hosts the extremely successful Variety Act podcast. He is John Abrams, and known by peers and children alike as his alter ego, Silly Billy. He's been touted hands down as one of the best children's performers in the country, with staggering credits that include performances at the White House, Lincoln Center, and The Late Show. Written up in the New Yorker and named Magician of the Year by the Society of American Magicians, he is David Kaye. Thank you, panel, for joining us. I am so excited. I am more excited in this show than anything else. The first question, of course, let me just say to the people at home, as you can see, these are not kid magicians. These are kids magicians, kids performers. And so, there's a lot of connotations about being a child performer. And so I guess the first question I would like to ask everyone is, when did it all go wrong? I will say, I really relate to this quite a bit. One of my first memories was I was at a birthday party and they had a magician at the birthday party. I could have been like 5, and he also had a little puppet rabbit that was his assistant. And I'm not going to lie, I was mesmerized. But there are quite a few stereotypes about people that do your kind of job. So before I even talk to anybody, by a raise of hands, let's just do a quick little survey here. Raise your hand if your house has more magic props than nutritious food. Anybody? Yeah. How many of you live in your mother's basement? Anyone? Wow. How many of you dress your pets up for a date? And the most important question we all want to know, how many in this panel are still virgins? Okay. I have to say, I thank you for joining us. It was very difficult to book this show. A lot of kids performers are afraid about their brand, and to your credit, that you showed up. Everyone does something different, a library show, a school show, children's parties, things like that, amusement park shows. Even David, you said to me in the email, which made me just your biggest fan ever, that by day you're a children's performer and at night you are a regular person and you have a life outside that. So to all the other performers that said, this doesn't match your brand, go fuck yourselves. You're pussies. Now, Joe, your show Books the Magic is Real. I'm sorry, that was where you started. Your show is called Reading Rocks, right?
Correct.
And so I guess my first question is, why a show around books? Books are like the stupid man's math. But no, I'm just kidding. I mean, we all know reading is important and it's part of a great curriculum for schools. But why did you particularly choose books?
So after my wife and I got off the road traveling and working for many, many years, we wanted to have kids, and living here in South Jersey, I wanted to find something that I could do locally. So you actually mentioned it briefly there just a moment. I met a magician from the Washington, D.C. area. He's an incredibly talented magician, writer, and he wrote this amazing show. I worked with him for many years and then decided, you know what? I've seen other magicians do similar programs. I feel like I could do the same thing, but maybe a little bit better and with my own touch. So with that, I created Reading Rocks. I continued with my own clients and built another show and another show upon that. And the reading kind of came in because I felt like there's always a budget for reading in schools. So I always felt like there was, science shows and there's math shows, other great, amazing shows, don't get me wrong, but there's always a budget for reading. And I always liked that connection. As a very young kid, I wasn't a big reader, but in high school and afterwards, and now with my kids, I love reading to them. So
well, you bring up a good point. When you do school shows, there's always a new audience. You can have the same booking from the same people in the same grade in the same school every year because there's always a new audience. Not all performers have that. Hey, David,
I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. I have clients that I've used for over but I've had for over 16 years. So it's amazing that you're able to, again, recycle kids in and out of schools like that.
David, what's the last book you read?
It was a magic book. I'm sure. I don't know, but it was definitely a magic book. That's all I did. The movie is going to be better. Hey, John, you work with animals, right? So first of all, John, I got to say, you work with the two things that show business people say you should never work with: children and animals. It's said to be the worst. So first of all, I want to know, what kind of animals do you use or have you used in the past?
Well, I've used just about every animal you can imagine. Right now I'm using a snake, chinchilla, hedgehog, dove, like a lot of magicians do. I've used chameleons, bearded dragons, just about any small animal you can fit somewhere.
Do you ever get this snake to make the chinchilla disappear? Oh, it's like, what's the worst animal to work with, and what was the worst kid to work with?
I'll tell you, the worst animal to work with was a chameleon, because their fingers and their hands stick to everything. So no matter how you try to make them appear, they don't cooperate. They just stick. So that was by far the toughest one to work with.
It seems like. And do you have pets at home, or are the animals the pets?
Yeah, I just have the animals that I use as the pets, and I have one blind dog.
Does he have a cup and a cane? I don't know what. You should put him into the act, just always facing the wrong way. Hey, David, first of all, David, let me just say, I scoured the internet. I didn't find many pictures of you performing in front of the kids, which makes me believe you're just a middle-aged guy that likes to dress up. But when I told people that you were going to do this, the people in the magic and children performing community went crazy. I think every area of business has their water cooler talk and has their famous people. I'm sure, people at the right age, oh boy, the way Jim worked that register back in 87 is a big deal. But, for magic, and for kids performing, it's such a small little niche, and everyone is really, very enamored by what you do. So I guess my question is, what makes a good sustainable act?
Understanding how to talk to kids, understanding the psychology of kids, understanding their brains. Magicians make a mistake when they try to perform their regular show or their normal tricks for kids, because they don't understand that kids' brains are different from adult brains, and so they do it wrong. But I think understanding the way a child thinks is key.
And has that changed over the years? First of all, you're more mature. You look different. The children are learning differently. Have you had to change your act a lot as far as how you relate to your audiences?
No, I don't think so. No. A 5-year-old is a 5-year-old, whether he grows up in the United States or in Africa or anywhere else in the world. The brain of a 5-year-old is always the same.
I'm huge in Africa, by the way.
Oh,
it occurs to me that I was talking to Joe. I think you and I had this conversation a long time ago. At some point you had said to me, boy, you're performing at that theater, that casino. Oh, I miss that. I'm like, why? You get standing ovations every day. It's in between screaming and pooping, but still. Is there anyone on the panel that ever had an interest in other areas of performance and then decided, okay, this is what I'm good at, I'm okay with this? Or was it something you were always okay with? Were you very clear on your product and your audience? Can anyone speak to that?
Oh yeah. I originally started out as an actor, so I was acting and performing, but I couldn't make a living. So I discovered magic, and I don't know if I'm necessarily the best magician out there. There's probably people on this panel that are way better than me, but I love entertaining. That's the whole thing. So starting out as an actor and using that to entertain and have fun and be all crazy, that's where I come from all the time.
Right. Joe?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I started off as a magician though, but found out, as I mentioned earlier, wanting to settle down, I still wanted to continue working. And although the casinos in Atlantic City offered a great outlet to perform in, it wasn't enough to make a living. And the kid shows, again, weren't enough to make a living. But I found that schools, kid shows, and adult shows as well, so being more of a family show entertainer, worked for me. And because I'm able to work in a variety of different venues, I'm able to make a living 37 years later.
So nobody's had any creative angst. What shoulda, could, woulda, shoulda, coulda. Nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know. David, you're very well known, and especially in New York, you've been a go-to for a lot of famous people and their kids' parties. How do they hear about you? Is it word of mouth? How do you promote yourself? How did that all come about?
No, it's word of mouth. The children of celebrities go to normal schools just like normal children. So if I do a show for a class of kids in which there are children of celebrities, then word of mouth spreads. The kid goes home and says, "I saw Silly Billy. I want him to come to my birthday party," and that's how it happens.
And John, do you think? I would think the adults are worse to deal with than the adults are the worst part of the job.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Tell me about it.
The adults are the ones that complain. The kids never complain because they're just having a great time. They're having lots of fun. But it's the parents that we usually hear from afterwards.
And what does that complaint usually sound like?
Well, I'll give you an example. One of the shows that I do a show for Red Ribbon Week, which is the no drug show. And after the show, I would pass around a
cocaine.
sheet. I would pass around a sheet that would where the teachers and the parents would tell me exactly how I did it. What's it called? An assessment. Thank you very much. I would pass around an assessment. And so one of the teachers gets one of these assessments and sends it back to me and says, "Oh, I don't appreciate how you handled this particular subject." All the kids had a great time. And then they passed it around the break room. And all of a sudden I get 5 or 6 of these assessments saying almost the exact same words. So it was the parents that were complaining. The kids had a great time.
Well, to their point, you really should take segregation out of your show. Joe, can you compare the kids today, compare the smarts and the behavior of your kids as a parent to the ones you're performing for?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think they're all in a pool right now where everything's digital, everything's TikTok videos, everything's quick. They want to see something happen right away. There's no patience. So it's a tough crowd. I mean, people say, "Oh, kids are easy to work for." They are definitely not my easiest crowd. I worked for drunk adults at nightclubs, and I've dealt with nightclub owners that are crazy. So I would say kids today are a good crowd, but not the greatest crowd because they're always a little, what's next? Nice job. What do you got now?
Well, it's funny. Like I worked for children's television, and people think those shows are all about sharing and caring. And then behind the scenes, it's like Game of Thrones. So I'm curious if for children's entertainers and competing, are there turf wars? Do kid performers have signature bits? I was invited to a ventriloquist convention once. It was awful. Don't ever go. They're awful. And hey, it's Billy. Go get a drink. Where Ron Lucas and Jeff Dunham were screaming about who came up with what bit first in the middle of a hallway. Does that sort of thing happen?
Oh yeah. I've seen a couple guys duke it out over this is my school. No, I worked that school before. You can't book that school, trying to blackball each other. And then one guy calling the school and saying, "Oh, that guy doesn't work anymore. I heard he's an alcoholic." And yeah, I've heard it's brutal.
David, you've been around for a long time. People kind of bow in your direction. Are there any bits that people have lifted where you've had to make a call?
Well, I wrote a book. I wrote a book teaching a lot of my routines. So it's open. People are allowed to do those routines.
Okay. Is any of it about segregation with animals?
No.
Now, after this, now we're going to play one of my favorite games. This game is called What's Next. Now, I like to call it what happens next. We look at a picture from earlier in your career and we decide what happened next in that photo. But of course, there is a magic term called What's Next. John, do you know what that term is?
Yeah, it has to do with the domino card where you're putting, yeah. It's,
right.
It's a domino card with dots on it.
Great. So let's look at picture number 1. Yeah. That is John. That's our friend John. And so I'm going to go to Joe first. Joe, what happened next?
I don't know. I think he takes off his shirt and rubs oil all over himself.
Probably. How about David? What happened next?
Yeah, he had sex with that tree.
I would agree. I think what happened next was he and the tree lit a cigarette and they each promised they called. Let's look at picture number 2. Hello. David, what happened next?
Jesus, I
don't think Jesus had anything to do with it.
I don't know. John got himself a free Happy Meal.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think he turned to his mother and said she needed to go easier on the eyeshadow. Joe, what happened next?
I think the Hamburglar came in and then had a threesome. How about that?
Oh, why a threesome?
I don't know.
Okay, let's go to the next picture, please.
Oh, there you go.
All right, John. What's next?
The next thing is someone standing behind him saying, "Is that really your hand?"
Yeah. Okay. How about you, David? What next?
I got nothing.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's a stumper. You're right. There's a lot going on there. There's the 1990s font. There's the extra hand. I think after this photo shoot, Joe bathed in aloe to take care of that nasty 3rd-degree burn. Look at that.
I look
He's
great.
so
I
red.
look very Trumpy there with my orange.
What happened? All right, let's go to the next picture. Okay. David, any thoughts?
He decided he ought to read one of those books one day.
One day, if he's going to teach about it, he really should read. How about you, John?
I think the librarians just hired him right after seeing the shot.
That's right. He said, get out of magic and become a librarian. I think it's either due to COVID that he's using these for toilet paper, or because he's illiterate. I think David's right. He's illiterate. And because there were no pictures, he gave away the books and then went and played with his Legos. Let's look at the next photo. How do you like that? Now that's David.
Yeah.
That's David. Joe, what happened next?
Wow. I don't know. I think they break out into the song. It looks like a choir.
You're right. John?
I think David looked to his left and said, "Oh, you're wearing your mask a little early."
Yeah, right. He was too needy, right? He was pushing it too early. I think this is a picture right before the coronavirus began. Now, nobody? Really? Nothing? I get nothing?
Yeah, that was what I was suggesting, but...
Oh, I didn't realize that. The mask. I thought because the mask were lips. That was my bad. Thank you, panel, for playing that game. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a magic moment. No, I love my time with Siegfried and Roy. Yeah, everyone always wants to know how old Siegfried is. Let me just say, Siegfried used to be a stud, but he's not young. His first STD was the plague. Yeah, Roy Horn was a great guy. He got a lot of flack. He knew what he wanted, and he was a great director, thought things through. Very meticulous, though. He did fire me just because I couldn't fit up the magician pant leg. Aren't you supposed to fit up the arm? Not in their show. Thank you, Rabbit. Something not right with him. Okay, I'd like to remind everyone that in this show, we are going to be taking calls coming up. So make sure you get in the queue. If you logged into the main page, there are buttons to press if you're just chatting, or if you want to call into our panelists and ask questions or make suggestions, or pose my question to you, which is, can you tell us your story of your best and worst children's entertainer you ever saw? Now I'd like to play a game that I'm calling, this is new, it's called The Reveal. The Reveal I'm going to tell 3 stories about each of our panelists, and our other panelists have to tell us which fact is truth and which fact is being revealed. So I'd like to talk about Joe Holiday first. John and Dave, this question is for you. Which of these facts are real? A, Joe was once a professional BMX freestyler. B, Joe made out with a teacher at a school after a show. Or C, he specialized in card tricks, but he's really dyslexic. John?
I'd like it to be B, but I don't think it is. I say it's C.
Okay,
Yeah,
you think he's dyslexic. How about you, Dave?
I gotta go with C, even though let's hope it's B.
The answer is A. At one time, he was a professional BMX freestyler. Yeah, let's go to Billy. Billy, David rather. This question is for our other two panelists about David. Guys, either A, David is a balloon blower, but he also has asthma. I know I do a lot of medical terms. I'm Jewish and I worry. B, David was once on the TV show Candid Camera. You know, he has been around for a while. Or C, David accidentally used the N-word in front of an audience. Joe, was it A, B, or C?
I'm going to go with A.
Okay, you think he has asthma. And Joe and John?
I'm going to go with B.
Yeah, that's right. He was on Candid Camera.
Wow.
How do you like that? And let's go to John. This last one is for about John Abrams, and this is for Joe and David. A, John was a nationally ranked swimmer at one time. B, John once got drunk with Jack Nicholson. Or C, John was thrown off stage at Disney World.
I hope it's not C. I'm going to go with B.
I'm going with A.
I'm sorry, David?
A, the swimmer?
Yes, that's right. He was a nationally ranked swimmer. That's right. Very good. Thank you for playing Revealed. We don't have any special music. We just have Special You. I have to ask a question. We have a lot to get to here. When I do clubs and when I used to do the comedy clubs, people who would normally never give me a second look would see me do my show and then throw their panties at me and want to get it on. Does that happen to children's entertainers?
Not that it's ever happened to me. No panties this way. Nope.
No.
Okay.
I got hit with a magic wand once in the foot. It's about as close as it gets for me.
I would count that as sex. One of the problems with performers in general is branding. A lot of artists don't know how to brand themselves. And so particularly during this very difficult time. And we did a poll listing of magicians who, due to branding, are not doing well. Can we look at that list? Maybe you know these guys. First, there was COVID the Clown. There's Virtual Wizard, the magician with no pants. Piff the Magic Virus. Chris Angel. Touchy McMagic. Ritalin the Magnificent.
Oh, yeah.
Tickle Me Eric. and a tie between the Great Codini and Prozac the Great. We wish them the very best of luck. Please call in now. We're looking for your calls. And now we go on to one of my favorite games that I call Beep, Shackle, Saw. Look at that. Yeah.
Oh.
Beep, Shackle, Saw. Now, of course, we have children's performers, so I'm bleeping myself. Beep, Shackle, Saw is, a take on Fuck, Marry, Kill. Oh, I didn't bleep myself for the fuck. That's okay. Let's take now, you know how this works. We show some people, and then you have to tell us who you will bleep, shackle. Shackle, of course, like marry, like ball and chain, and saw in half, like kill. Let's look at our subjects, please. Yes.
Oh, God.
We have, because you are children's entertainers, we have Mr. Belding, the school principal. We have Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, and of course, Baby Shark. So, John, who would you beep, shackle, and saw?
Well, I guess I'd bleep Betsy, I guess. Probably shackle that Baby Shark, I guess.
Okay, you'd make a lovely couple.
Thank you. And then got to kill that Belding.
Well, he deserves it. He's a terrible actor. David.
Well, Betsy DeVos automatically gets sawed in half. So, which leads me to, let's say I'll F the shark and marry the principal.
I like that. And
sorry, Betsy DeVos, you gotta saw her in half.
Right, and you're gonna bleep the shark. Is that what you said?
Sure.
Well, I think you're gonna please wear protection. Joe.
Well, considering the current administration named Betsy DeVos in charge of education, and she hasn't done a very good job, I'm going to kill her. There's no question about it. And then I'm left with Belding and the shark. That's a tough one. I guess I'll have to shackle Belding and I'll bang the shark as David did.
Great. God, that's a terrible threesome. I hope the government isn't viewing this and coming to your houses afterwards. Thank you for playing Blank, Shackle, Saw. That was really fun. And now, in one or two sentences, I'd like to ask each of you, when was the first and last time you were magically touched? And of course, that has many connotations. I will say the first time I was magically touched, again, I mentioned before, was the birthday party magician with the rabbit puppet. I was enamored. The last time I was magically touched, well, it was during this quarantine. And let me just say my penis is joining the Me Too movement. Joe, when was the first and last time in 1 or 2 sentences you were magically touched?
Wow, this is a tough one for me. I'm going to go the easy route here, guys. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Sharon, and she was my lovely assistant or partner, as you called on the last special, for many years. And I would say that I met her through a mutual friend. And the first time that we worked together, we were backstage. We looked at each other and I go, I kind of like you. And she goes, yeah, I kind of like you too. And then she was stuck with me for the rest of her life. So I would say that would be the last time I was magically touched.
Great. I have diabetes now. David, the first or last time you have magically touched, David?
When I was 6 years old, I went to a school magic show, and the magician picked me and brought me up on stage, and that was the first time I was magically touched by the art of magic. And the last time I was magically touched was before the quarantine.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
That's when you grew the beard. John?
Yeah, my first time I was magically touched, I suppose, my wife had invited a magician over to the house and did card in the ceiling. It's where you pick a card and you sign it, and he throws the deck up and it ends up in the ceiling. And it stayed there for, 5 or 6 years until we moved out of the house. So that was the first time. Last time I was magically touched, I don't remember. So I guess maybe it was my own wand. I don't know. Maybe with myself. I don't know. It's been a while. Let me tell you.
Always a wand trick with you people. Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, I'd like to, I don't think we have any callers. Oh, right. And that's great because I want to go, before we roll our next magic moment, I want to tell you, normally we've been doing magic moments specifically about magic, but there are many different kinds of magic moments. Last weekend, I was invited on a Zoom bar mitzvah where there was like 70 participants. And while listening to the rabbi, one of the 70 viewers gave me this magic moment. Yeah.
And with string cheese. Doesn't get better than that.
String cheese, that's right. Although Graham, one of the producers, thought that it was noodle. She's like, are we going to roll the Jew noodle video? Before we go on to our final game of questions, a lot of people think that artists are not knowing of what else is going on in the world. So we also like to do a little bit of monologuing of what else is happening in the world. For those of you who don't know, here in LA this past Tuesday night around 12:05 a.m., my apartment shook from a 3.2 earthquake, and then I took myself to dinner and a movie. In stock market news, for anyone who is involved in the stock market, gas prices were in the negatives this week. At one point, prices were lower than jugglers and ventriloquists, so we're hoping that will bounce back. In entertainment, a lot of movies, because of the quarantining, are premiering and going straight to video or digital platforms. The Scooby-Doo movie that came out a few years ago and was absolutely awful has had a sequel made. And in this one, Scooby, Shaggy, and all the gang get COVID-19 from not taking separate cars, which is a total shame because I really wanted them to solve the mystery of why this movie was financed in the first place. And finally, to an inside joke for all the magicians out there, it's been, as many of you might know, I met the Queen of England. I had an audience with her. It's all in my book about how I snuck in and then I got to perform. And so I'm kind of interested in the royal family. It has been a big 2 weeks for Queen Elizabeth, who celebrated her 94th birthday and addressed the nation in a 4.5-minute address that was followed by a 3-hour live stream by Harrison Greenbaum. I don't know who that is. All the magicians want me to make fun of him. Apparently he's a lovely guy. Okay. I will mention that while I write a lot of the content for the first couple of shows, we decided to do some community outreach and really bond with everybody. So every Wednesday on masterclass.com, we offer people to join us in the writer's room. And so a lot of the jokes we put up from the different segments are from our writers. So we can all kind of collaborate together. It's really, really fun. So by all means, check that out on the website. We're about to wrap things up. We're right on time. And so as I end every show, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. Joe, what is that number?
Mike McLaughlin told me it was 43.
Okay. John, what is that number?
7.
And David, what is that number?
37.
Okay, David has won. The number is 37. And David, because you have won, you now need to sing one line of any song that has the lyrics Mambo number 5 in it. Go.
I don't know the lyrics to that song, Mambo number 5. Julie and Carrie and Karen. There's a lot of female names going on.
Okay, stick to magic. The wand is broken. The rabbit is dead. Thank you, panel. Thank you, viewers. Good night.